Hi everybody, John back again. In this video I'm going to talk about continuation of my hard rock and heavy metal records, starting the section beginning with T. Quite glad to have Saxon and the Scorpions out of the way. They had been sort of stalling me for a bit, but anyway, now I'm going to start off, and I've got some, I think some fairly interesting records to show and talk about now. So the first one is this is Joey, I don't know really how to pronounce that, Tafola, Joey Tafola. So he's one of these neo classical guitar shredders that were very popular at this time in the sort of the mid to late 80s. It's on Roadrunner, this album, and yeah, there you go, Roadrunner. There's a track on this album that features on the Guitar Masters compilation record, which I think is most likely where I first heard the name Joey Tafola, and yeah, it kind of spurred me on. I used to listen to a lot of this type of stuff. I think it gets to the point though where it all starts to sound a little bit samey. Yeah, what can I say? I mean, it's a great record, great melodies. Next up we have Italian. This is a thrash metal band. Yeah, so this is the only record that they made, and it is actually one that I picked up for next to nothing. I think I probably would have paid, yeah, most likely 10 krona, which is around about £1 ish, and I bought this. This is one of those ones that I picked up in Sweden in the 90s when nobody wanted records. Heavy metal records were the lowest of the low, and when I saw them I snapped them up because they were pennies, and now this one goes in this condition goes for almost £100 or so on Discogs. Quite an unusual record. It's on Major Records. Next along we've got Tank. This is Fourth Hounds of Hades. An interesting band. A while ago, a couple of years now ago, I think John Bitbot Boom did a really interesting video of the sort of the triangle between Tank, Motorhead and the Damned. I knew that there were links between the Damned and Motorhead, and I knew that there were links between Motorhead and this band. I didn't know of the link between this band and the Damned. But it is an interesting video. I'll see if I can put a link to that if I can find it. It's well worth watching. So yeah, this is on Camouflage. Sorry, I had to work that out. I'm a bit throaty today because I'm sort of getting over a cold, and I've just got that sort of tickly cough thing going on, so excuse me on that. And then comes this next Tank album. I've always thought that's quite a good cover. Honor and Blood. Yeah, I don't really know what I can say about Tank, other than that I know for a fact, because this is on Roadrunner, that they used to be at some time a support act for Motorhead. And if you hear them, yeah, you can see how that, yeah, this music that they play would appeal to Motorhead fan people. So yeah, next one. And then I got one more by Tank. This is a picture disc. What's it called? This Means War. An interesting picture. That's the back. Next few records, perhaps not necessarily metal, but they're definitely hard rock, and I'm just going to go ahead and show them. There are people, I'm sure, that will say that shouldn't be in this collection, but well, that's where I put it. This is Andy Taylor and his album, his first solo album called Thunder. This is in the shrink. I believe that this is the American cover. And here's a picture of Andy Taylor and Steve Jones. So Andy Taylor produced the album. Steve Jones from the Sex Pistols sort of co-produced the album. These two were really good friends. Andy Taylor moved to, I believe, Los Angeles and became great friends with Steve Jones. And he also became great friends with Rod Stewart, amongst other people. Yeah, so I've got another copy of this album. This is the UK edition. Yeah, this is the same record, exactly the same. Yeah, even the same stuff inside. Yeah, why have I got this here? Okay, so Andy Taylor, he was the guitarist in Duran Duran. He did this spot with the Power Station, which was sort of, you know, in a more rockier direction. Still quite stylized, but you know, it was compared to what he was able to do in Duran Duran, it was really quite sort of, you know, setting him free. Then he left Duran Duran completely, and he fell out with everybody, and he sort of started making his own music. This came out in '87, I think. Yeah, and I'll do a little bit of a needle drop of this, and you'll hear that. Yeah, it it fits quite conveniently and probably quite nicely into that sort of Bon Jovi-esque type American sort of glam rock type stuff that was happening on MTV, and it's sort of obviously directed in that direction, this music. And yeah, it's quite good. I remember when I when I discovered it, I first discovered Andy Taylor's solo career when I found a 12-inch. I didn't know it had been released. I mean, this is, you know, before the internet or anything. I found a 12-inch of him doing a track off this. I think it was I Might Lie. And yeah, I took it home and I was amazed. I was, wow, it's brilliant. And the girlfriend that I had at the time, she was also a very big Duran Duran fan, and you know, we got really into this. And then then we got the album when it came out, and from there we sort of, or her really, she kind of led the way, but she sort of leapfrogged onto Bon Jovi, and then yeah, further on to Skid Row, and yeah, the rest is history. We just started going in this sort of hard rock, eventually getting to heavy metal type thing, and this was, I think, you know, for us, the starting point in many ways. A really good record. I listened back to it just before I started making this video, and at the time when it came out, yeah, it sounded like, you know, bone rattling metal. Now that I listen to it, I realise it's fairly, you know, tame hard rock. But I guess it's just the leapfrog of you know, from him being in Duran Duran to becoming great friends with Steve Jones of Sex Pistols fame, and then putting out sort of yeah, a real sort of hard rock album. Next of all, I'm going to show you this. So this is his second album that he brought out, and it is an album full of covers. I often wonder why he did this. I mean, he was making his way as sort of being a record producer as well. I'll talk a bit more about that in a short while, but I think that maybe he made this record that's got lots of covers on, basically as a sort of a showcasing, perhaps. Looking very cool there. This is on A&M Records. So yeah, the choice of tracks on this I think are quite telling. He's picked out a lot of really sort of strong classic gems to cover in his own particular way. So you've got Don't Believe a Word by Thin Lizzy. Excuse me. You got Stone Cold Sober. I don't know who that's by. I can't tell you. I Feel Like Making Love. I think it was Bad Company. Then you got Lola by the Kinks. Space Station Number 5 by the Montrose. And then side 2 you got Sympathy for the Devil, Mustang Sally, Violence. I don't know who that's by. Cocaine. I think that's a Eric Clapton thing, isn't it? Livewire by AC/DC. And you know, he sort of takes full opportunity in this record to really sort of, you know, flex his muscles a bit and show his production skills, but also his playing skills and things. It's a good record. A bit stylized still, but yeah, it's a great record. It's a good blast. Great record. The next record I'm going to show. I don't know much about this band. This is Tesla. This is a record that I found around about, you know, in the same time roughly as I found that Italian record in Sweden, in the Myrorna, which is the Salvation Army charity shop. This is a double album, and Tesla are a band. I think I'd only really heard of them from when they did this. They did some sort of a acoustic ballady type song that was in the charts. I can't remember what it was. And this is sort of doubling up on that sort of, you know, long-haired guy with an acoustic guitar sitting doing music, sort of, that really sort of came very popular with the Wanted Dead or Alive thing that Bon Jovi did, you know. And it's sort of become the thing that each band really eventually had to do, and they scored a hit on MTV with it. Yeah, I paid pittance for this double album. Barely listened to it. I really should. I haven't, so there you go. And likewise of this one. This is Tesla. I think it's about their fourth 4th or 5th. Yeah, I would have picked this up again, next to nothing. There's the band, don't know much about them. Geffen Records. Yeah, I've got issues I think with them really, because they do this thing with yeah, here, like where they cross out some words on the song listing. I don't know, is that meant to be a sort of a funny satirical thing, or is it just they changed their mind and they thought they'd cross it out? I don't know. And they do a few things like that. I think on this album there's something that happens that I think is a bit, yeah, like here they do this thing crossing out here where they sort of correct the official text. No, it wasn't recorded on that date, it was recorded on this date in this place. And for me it just feels a bit like, as a designer and sometimes an editor, it feels a bit like sloppy. They're releasing things that haven't been done properly from the start, so they've had to cross it out and to make, fix it up. Yeah, there you go. Next album, this is a band called Terraplane. They're a British band. Still got the price tag on it. Like the original price tag, somebody obviously paid £6.29 from Boots. I didn't pay that. I bought this for very little, I'm sure. Yeah, this band went on to become the British band called Thunder. And there's a link here really as well, because the band Thunder, I understand, steals its name from the Andy Taylor album named Thunder, and it's also produced by Andy Taylor. This isn't produced by Andy Taylor. I think Andy Taylor hadn't really kind of bumped into these people yet, but what can I tell you? Terraplane, they were a band that struggled for a long time. They were quite a tight band, always just on the outside of becoming big. And as Terraplane, I don't think they ever really did make it big. It wasn't until they changed their name to Thunder, made up with Andy Taylor, and he sort of, I don't know, somehow pulled strings enough for them to get a bit more limelight, that they sort of become the big band that they went on to become. But it's fairly sort of typical sort of UK British stuff. The guitarist in this band is, I think it's this guy, is Luke Morley. Now he's an incredible guitarist, and I'll talk a bit more about him in a little while. The next album I'm going to show is this. This is one that I bought for 99p. It's the very first album by Testament. It's called The Legacy. It was one that I picked up in what we got, Our Price, which was a big chain here. I don't know if it's still going, probably not. A big chain here in the UK, and it was from the time when nobody was interested in buying records, so they were flogging them off very cheaply, because people were buying CDs, so they needed to shift a lot of records very quickly just to get rid of them, so they free up their shelf space, I suppose. I had this a long time, barely played it. I don't know. I mean, I've always liked thrash metal. I'm probably guilty of staying a bit too close to, the big four: Megadeth, Metallica, Slayer, and sometimes even Anthrax. Although I probably could have done myself a favour and listened a bit more closely to this, but oh well, still nice to have. Wish I had the cover. I guess I should look out for a copy of the cover. There you go, that's Testament's first album. And then there's a band called Throbs, quite an unusual band, I believe, but they fit right in with the sort of the glam metal type thing, like your Motley Crues and your Poisons. I think they've got the yeah. I mean, they're not quite, you know, backcombed hair, are they? But they've definitely got the sort of the black eyeliner, so a bit more of a sort of a darker independent edge on them perhaps, but they're definitely aiming for that. And you know, I think it's quite an interesting picture. I always like to think how you can, if you look carefully, various different people in different bands through the time, how a lot of this style is really sort of descended from Keith Richards in the Rolling Stones. How he sort of you know, he set the model, if you like, and then so and so copied him, and so wanted to look a bit like him. And then you got Johnny Thunders, you know, and then so on and so forth. And eventually it sort of comes down. It still goes on. You can see people that it's all sort of have a look that's derived so much from Keith Richards. Anyway, it's the Throbs. I'll do a little drop of that just for you to hear. Now, coming on to this is the record I was talking about. This is Thunder. So this is the band that used to be Terraplane. This was a huge smash hit and an incredible record. So when this came out, you know, Thunder, the people that had been Terraplane, were sort of overnight success. And yeah, they were automatically placed on the playlist of Donington Monsters of Rock Festival this year when this came out, and yeah, that was a fantastic year. They broadcast that live on the radio, hosted by the Friday night rock show host, and it was really good. If you haven't heard this record, I really recommend it. It's kind of bluesy, kind of hard rock, classic rock type stuff. I'll give you a good idea. When David Coverdale heard this record, he asked Luke Morley if he would leave that band and go and play for him in Whitesnake. Of course, Luke Morley said, "No, wait, I'm not doing that," you know. But I guess that will give you some idea of, you know, what type of music this is. I'll do another new drop of this. It's brilliant. It's a really good record. Next along I'm going to show Tiger Tales. I bought this just in recent years. I had a copy of this album on cassette. A girlfriend had given it to me when I lived in Portsmouth, and I think just upon moving to Wales, it made me think, oh, I really should own that record. So I managed to pick it up quite cheaply. I didn't pay very much for it, but it is, yeah, it is. I mean, yeah, talking about in the Poison, Motley Crue type vein, this is right there, a Welsh band. And after this, after they released this record, I understand they actually went and sort of dabbled a bit with thrash. Now, next record I'm going to show is actually an EP or a 12-inch single, but I'm going to show it anyway. A single called Heaven, which is, you know, is your typical kind of ballad type thing by a rock band. But the B-sides on this are covers that they did of Metallica's Creeping Death, and then they also did a cover of Peace Sells by Megadeth. I gave a copy of this 12-inch to Andy Cloudy Mulder a couple of years ago, because it's from Cardiff, just like this band are. I thought it might make him laugh. But yeah, I understand the album that came out after this was even much more sort of directed at a thrash audience. I haven't got that. I've only just learnt that fact recently, but I really do want to pick that up just to sort of hear how it sounds. It's probably really good. I think they do a good job of these covers. So yeah, a little bit unusual, you know, but it's interesting just the same. And then the last record in this batch, quite a large batch I'm showing today, is Tokyo Blade. Tokyo Blade were part of the new wave of British heavy metal thing, I believe. It's come out in '83, and it's a great record. And I've often wondered, you know, where does the line cross? Where does things stop being new wave of British heavy metal and start being thrash? Because I think this has got one sturdy foot in the field of thrash. You'll see what I mean if I play a little bit of this. Yeah, I'm no expert on the thing, but this sounds very thrashy to me. But yeah, look it up, and it's described as new wave of British heavy metal. Great band. This is the first album, and I think they made a few albums, and they're still going today, I believe. But in their first 2 or 3 albums, they had so many sort of diverse lineup changes and things that they sort of never really made it big, because they weren't really sort of a together band for very long. But they're still sort of going now as balding, portly old men playing this type of music. Oh, good luck to them. But yeah, so I picked this up at a car boot sale. I can remember the occasion clearly. I picked up a few other records at the same time from the same person, of a similar merit. So okay, everybody, that brings us into T. I believe there's a few more in T, which I'll talk about in the next edition of my hard rock and heavy metal records. Thanks very much. Check out my next video. Bye. You like to mess around with all the guys in town.